Welcome to Interview, a production of the Government Information Service. I am your host for today, Jacques Compton. Today, we will be talking about standards, more specifically, standards for tourism-related services, as well as energy efficiency labeling of refrigerators. With me is Ms. Tzarmallah Haynes, the Head of Standards Development at the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards. Welcome, Ms. Haynes.
Thank you.
Now, first of all, could you elaborate on why you are here today?
Okay, we've recently issued a couple standards for public comment where we invite the general public and interested parties to peruse the content of these standards and provide their feedback in relation to whether the requirements are suitable or whether they are in acceptance with the requirements or would like to propose changes be made to the standards. So it's the opportunity where we provide the general public and all interested parties, both nationally and regionally and internationally, to give us their input into the national standards.
And how would one provide their input?
We generally accept input through written comments, although we do also, if you call us, we would write down what you articulate to us. Persons can access the standard as well as what we have a comment form at the National Libraries in St. Lucia or through us at the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards. We make arrangements to get the standard to you and the comment form. So it's not too much of a hindrance to get it. And these days everybody is online, if you want to put it that way. So the standard is available on our website. We have links through our Facebook page as well. And if you follow us on Twitter, you can definitely be informed immediately when the standard goes out for public comment and access the links to download and review and comment on the standard.
Okay, so let us start with the energy efficiency labeling of refrigerators. What can you tell us about the standards for such, the new standards?
Well, this is a new standard proposed as part of a series of energy efficiency labeling standards. We have already adopted standards dealing with lamps, LED, CFL lamps for energy efficiency labeling, and air conditioners and refrigerators follow suit, where we are giving requirements or recommendations for all energy efficiency labels that are to be used on refrigerator appliances in St. Lucia. And the focus is on the use of a comparative label where you can determine whether the appliance is rated A, as far down to G, and give you an indication of how efficient the appliance is based on that comparative label.
Okay, and will the Bureau be encouraging consumers to buy more energy efficient refrigerators, for example, or will the purchase eventually be mandatory?
Well, as part of, I suppose, the wider national thrust towards reducing our carbon footprint and encouraging energy efficient appliances being used in St. Lucia. This is, I suppose, the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards contribution, where we can address it through labeling. And this would support other initiatives being put forward by other ministries and other agencies in St. Lucia. Currently, we're proposing the standard for voluntary adoption, but the intent is that it becomes mandatory. And the method of policing, if you want to put it that way, would be to ensure that refrigerator appliances coming into the island have these labels on them. And where they do not have these labels, we're very happy to inform that we have a lab right here in St. Lucia, the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards, where we can establish what the energy efficiency rating of the appliance would be, and we can affix the label to the product. And we're currently working with some importers. Right now, it's being done as a pilot project where they supply appliances for us to do the testing and give an indication of the energy efficiency rating.
Can you tell us anything about the physical description of the labels? What will they look like? Where will they be placed on
the placement is really up to the producer or the importer. But it has to be in a permanent position, and it has to be affixed to the item until purchased by the end user. So it's up to the end user to take it out. But because we're going comparative label, it's different from the endorsement type where it's an Energy Star. It really is a scale, and it's the color-coded, where A is the highest energy efficient appliance, and it goes down the scale. It has other information in terms of where it would have been tested, because we'd appreciate that doing or establishing energy efficiency varies depending on where you're operating, the temperature of the country, and even the rated voltage and frequency, etc. So the comparative label that we're using is that which is endorsed by the Pan American Standards Commission, the COPAD, and it is being used by Latin American and Caribbean countries. So that is the comparative label that we've chosen, something that can work for our region. Of course, there are other label types from the US and from the EU. However, when we did our assessment, looking at our importation cycles and our operating conditions, we would have went with the COPAD label to be used nationally.
Okay, so let's talk about what consumers would care about. How does that affect their wallet?
Well, consumers always care about the bottom line and whether or not they're going to be saving money. Of course, it's difficult sometimes for a consumer to understand that I have to pay maybe a couple $100 more for an A-rated appliance as opposed to one that's C and it's working. They will both refrigerate my food. But it really is about the long-term savings and having that also interest in how you affect the environment, because a more efficient appliance means that you have less of a negative impact on the environment, and you would see savings as it pertains to your electricity bill. So it's an investment because you would pay more for a more efficient appliance, but you would definitely reap the rewards of that, knowing that you assist in our efforts at sustainability, as well as you would see the effect on your pocket eventually.
Okay. We're due for a break right now. When we return, we will talk about the standards of tourism-related services. Stay tuned to the National Television Network and interview.
As an early childhood practitioner, I believe that children have the capacity to maximize their potential, and it takes commitment to make it happen. I am doing my part. You too can play your part.
Take responsibility for creating a child-friendly society. This message brought to you by the Early Childhood Services of the Ministry of Education and Culture.
Welcome back to Interview, a production of the Government Information Service. With me is Ms. Tzarmallah Haynes, Head of Standards Development at the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards. Now, let's switch gears for a moment and talk about the tourism-related services, the standards for such. What do these include?
We currently have 2 standards related to tourism out for public comment. One covering natural protected areas and guidelines for authorities that manage natural protected areas. And the other one, I suppose, is going to be more impactful in terms of the stakeholders. It's that for ground transportation, or like we say in St. Lucia, the tourism taxis. So these 2 standards, definitely target persons that offer tourism services. One speaks to the authorities, and the tourism ground transportation gives specific requirements for the actual taxi, the operators, the tour operators, operators of taxi companies as well, the requirements in there, the requirements for the actual vehicle, and how ensuring that you are insured, ensuring that you're properly trained, ensuring that basic safety requirements are met, and having seat belts on every seat, having receptacles for disposing garbage inside the vehicle, etc. ensuring that you regularly inspect and check your vehicle, not just because of national requirements, but bearing in mind that a taxi is really the first and the last point of contact for a tourist who comes into St. Lucia. When they get out of the airport, most times they're picked up in a taxi, and before they leave, they dropped off on the airport in a taxi.
So how will this affect, let's say, visitors, stakeholders, and the like?
Well, it's about ensuring that we have a improved level of service, quality of service, and focusing on safety issues being addressed through the implementation of the standard. The biggest stakeholder that stands to be impacted by this standard would be our taxi operators. We have various associations that exist in St. Lucia, and we really want to encourage them to access this standard, because the standard forms the basis for the policies being developed by the Ministry of Tourism. And having implemented the standard, it means that you would be meeting the requirements of the ministry. Let me add that this is not a new standard. This standard has been revised. It was first adopted in 2007, and it's under systematic review, where we've updated the requirements to include a new line of taxis, which is the luxury cars, which was absent a couple of years ago. So now we are ensuring that we cover all aspects of the taxi service that is being offered currently.
Okay, and other than feedback via public comment that we were speaking about earlier, is there any other way that you've involved the various stakeholders?
We have tried to do consultations, and the Ministry of Tourism have had a few meetings with inspectors of taxi vehicles and even taxi operators. So we've used that opportunity to go and present and engage them, inform them. The standard is available. Can you please comment? So we intend to continue during the comment period to engage more taxi operators for that particular standard through stakeholder meetings. So when we send out the invitation, we hope we get a lot more persons attending these stakeholder meetings, and not just to attend, but providing that feedback that is critical for the development of the standard.
And what is the deadline for public comment?
Well, for these standards, the comment period ends the 18th of January. However, if we feel that there is not enough comments that we've generated, given the areas that we're looking at, we can extend that maybe by another 30 days to give persons an opportunity to comment and provide feedback.
Okay, and you mentioned that we could make public comments on websites and via calling the Bureau of Standards.
Definitely.
So could you give a telephone number and a website?
Definitely. Our website is www.slbs.org.lc, or you could call us at the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards 45-30049. We're happy to accept your calls and your comments at any time. You can also send us an email at info@slbs.org, and we would definitely respond to you. And through our website, you can put your comments in directly on the website. You could check us out on Facebook, and like I said, you could follow us on Twitter, and you will be the first to know more or less when there are changes happening within the Bureau of Standards, and when standards maybe that might not, standards that are within your scope and your interests go out for comment or are adopted. You can definitely have that information firsthand.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Haynes, for joining us very briefly to talk about standards. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in to Interview and the National Television Network. I am your host, Jacques Compton. Stay tuned to our station.